Welcome back to the channel. It might be a little bit windy, let me slow down. Okay, welcome back to the channel / ride. In this video we're going to talk about the offices of the lodge. Let's go through these. And again, I'm not giving away any Masonic secrets, so don't expect me to go too deep into this. But offices of the lodge. Now I have written a lecture. I've written a lecture about the office of the lodge. It's called The Living Lodge. And my view is that every lodge office position is a position in your life you need to master. So don't just take on an office role for the title. Use that metaphor to apply that particular office, what you're doing in the lodge. Now, lodge offices, there are several lodge offices. There are quite a few, not too many really. So we'll start with who's outside the door of the lodge, the outer guard. So the outer guard, or Tyler, he's outside the door of the lodge with a sword, and it's his duty to keep off all cowans and trespassers. What is a cowan? Someone who's not a Mason that wants to try to find the secrets. So that's what the outer guard's job is. I actually won't go through too much of the job descriptions though. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. But you've got an outer guard, right? That's his duty. There are other duties that he has, but we're not going to go into those. Then we have the inner guard, and he's inside the door of the lodge. That's why he's called the inner guard. And the implement he has will vary depending on the different lodge and what constitution or ritual they're going by. So then inner guard, and that's probably one of the most common positions a newly made Master Mason will take. So you do need to be a Master Mason, a 3rd degree Mason, to be an officer of a lodge. So you can't be a 1st degree, or sort of Entered Apprentice or a Fellow Craft and be an officer. You need to be a 3rd degree Mason. That's what the rules are anyway in Queensland and in other states of Australia. Other countries might have different rules, and that's completely cool. It is what it is. So when you take office for the first time, if that's something you desire, not everyone wants to take an office. I know plenty of Masons that have never had an office position in the lodge because they just don't want to, and that's cool. And as someone who's done a lot of different office positions, I completely understand. Inner guard is a really good one to start off with, and the reason is that's probably the least amount of work, which is a good thing. You're sort of getting eased into it, because as you move up an office, there's more you've got to do, more you've got to memorize too. So inner guard is a great place to start. There's not that much to remember, not much to do, and you can sit back after you've done your little bit towards the start and watch the show. From there, progressing to a deacon work. And now the deacons, in my view, again, this is all just my opinion, they're the ones that can really make or break ritual work. They're the most important ones that need to be at practice meetings, because they're doing the majority of the work. They're doing all the floor work, so to speak. So you've got 2 deacons. You've got a junior deacon and a senior deacon. What work do they have to do? Well, it's relatively the same. Slight variances. In my lodge, the junior deacon is in charge of all the 1st degree work. The senior deacon is in charge of all the 2nd and 3rd degree work. So they're doing all the floor work. They're the ones with the candidate the entire time. So if you're a candidate, or you're about to become a candidate, you're about to be initiated, there is someone literally holding your hand or arm the entire time. Don't freak out, you're never left alone. There's always someone with you, and they're going to explain to you what you need to do, what you need to say, or prompt you to say something. Don't stress. That is the duty of a deacon. They will make you feel comfortable. They will guide you. Deacon work, there is a fair bit involved. There's a fair bit to remember, but if you started as an inner guard, and I can only say this about my mother lodge and the ritual I've read with other lodges, so most lodges in Australia, you're really saying the same thing but repeating it more times. There are other things you've got to say and do, but it's really not that much of a jump from the inner guard. While you are doing it a lot, it's repetitive. You should never take a warden position unless you've done a deacon position, in my opinion. because a deacon really has to know the ritual. So then you've got your deacon. So you'll go from interguard to junior deacon and then to senior deacon, and from senior deacon that's when you hit into the wardens. So then you've got your junior warden and your senior warden. So the junior warden has his own particular things that he'll deliver, charges that he'll do, and his different roles in opening and closing the lodge. And the senior warden, again, different charges that are going to be done. Pretty hefty, large charge at the end, and he'll assist the master in things as well. And then you have the Worshipful Master, or Right Worshipful Master of your lodge, the guy sitting in the chair at the east. He's obviously the one running the lodge. He's the one that's going to be making decisions to bring the lodge into the future or have the lodge shut down. He's the one running the show. Sitting to the left of the Worshipful Master of the lodge, it will be the immediate past master. And when I say to the left, I mean as if you're the master sitting in the chair. To the left of you is the immediate past master. Here's the bloke that was in the chair before you. Here's the one that passed the buck and said, no backsies. Well, that's what I said on installation when I handed over the chair. I said, no backsies. That's your immediate past master. And he's really the master's mentor. He's the one that's going to guide the master and help him doing the job, because, you know, first night in the job and first couple of meetings, the Worshipful Master is going to be a little confused and learning a new role. So the immediate past master is there to give a bit of advice and mentor the new master. Sorry, I'll just sort of focus a little bit going up the hill. There we go. And there's a number of past masters in a lodge, and they, in my lodge in particular, we have a board of past masters. So every lodge will have a board of past masters, but we literally have a board of past masters, and they all get together and help the master and think about what's going on in the lodge and where they think the lodge could go, what direction and what needs to happen. And they'll all discuss that and then brief the master of the lodge and have a chat. So, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? What are your thoughts? It is ultimately up to the master of the lodge to make the final decision. But having a board of past masters there, experienced masons that have all been in your position to give you some advice and think about things and give you some ideas, is very handy. It's very good. But the ultimate decision comes down to the master of the lodge on what they do. Unless the master of the lodge is a bit of a weirdo, or doing something that's extremely bad for the lodge or could detriment the lodge. Sorry, let me just get up this. It's all rutted out and loose gravel. The past masters aren't really going to do much other than give advice. But if the master's maybe making some wrong calls or doing something that could detriment the lodge or Freemasonry in general, you'll find the past masters are going to step in and take control. The immediate past master, or any past master of the lodge, will also assume the position of master of the lodge when the master of the lodge is away. So they'll go back to running the lodge if the master decides to have a night off, which does happen. So yeah, they're the office positions. And then we've got, in addition to those, so those are the officers that are involved in all the ritual. That being said, you've got the one that's sort of in charge of the ritual, which is the director of ceremonies, which is exactly as it seems. He's the director of the ceremonies of the ritual work. And he is often on the floor in the lodge, walking around with the deacons, and he's there to sort of prompt them if they forget something, or direct them on where to go and stuff like that. And he's also the one that will allocate the work. So in the ritual work, there's a lot of charges. So charge is just like a lecture sort of thing. And while most of that's done by the officers of the lodge, some are not. Some are done just by past masters or other brothers in the lodge. So the director of ceremony, well, in my lodge anyway, they're the one that organises all of that. Who's going to do what charge and all that kind of stuff. So another key player when it comes to the workings of the actual work in the lodge. You'll have an almoner, and an almoner is going to be someone who's keeping in contact with the brethren, making sure everyone's okay. If someone a brother falls ill or anything happens, he'll be the one reaching out to make sure you're okay, and if there's anything the lodge you can do to help, and send a nice bouquet of flowers. If your partner's sick, stuff like that, family members, they're the ones that are going to reach out. Make sure you're okay and see if there's anything we can do to help, because we do help each other out. You've got stewards. So the stewards are master masons, and the steward's job is to sort of just help out with the lodge. They'll do the setup, the pack up, the festive board, all that kind of stuff. Just help out any way they can with the general running of the lodge. They're like, not an entered apprentice, you've got to be a master mason, but they're like the apprentices before they get an office position. That's generally where a lot of people will start, depending on the number of masons in the lodge. You'll start off as a steward. And that shows that you have what it takes. You rock up all the time, you do your work, you do it well. You'll do some charges as well. So some lodges will make it so if there's any charges that need to be done that are not done by a lodge officer, they'll be done by a steward, and that's their apprenticeship, so to speak, them showing that they're capable of delivering ritual with meaning and in a way that that lodge likes before they take on office. After that, and I'm not saying these in order, well, the initial ones I said in order in rank in the room, but not by how important that office is, though. Every office is important. Two very important offices are the lodge secretary and the treasurer. So the secretary is the one that's setting out all the summonses to say, hey, we've got a meeting, you coming? And all the communications. They're the ones that take note of everything that's happening in lodge, everything that's happening in the world, to report back to the lodge and keep everyone well informed. The treasurer is there for, well, as you'd expect, the money side of things. So if you your lodge is broke, but your treasurer's got a brand new boat, ask some questions. So the treasurer's going to be paying all bills due and report back and say what those bills were, and just keep track of the bank account, make sure the lodge is financial. I can't think of the chaplain over in the east, well, the southeast. So the chaplain, two jobs, and different lodges might have different roles for the chaplain, but in general, in my area, the chaplain is obviously doing the role of a chaplain. They will read out different parts of the scripture when required. We don't read a lot of scripture in lodge, a couple of times, but that's what they do. And they also keep track of the ritual. So they'll be there with the ritual book open, and their fingers on what word each person's saying. They're following it to a T. So if someone does need a prompt, and it definitely does happen, if someone does need a prompt when they're delivering a charge or saying something, the chaplain's the one that's going to prompt them. The DC may do it if they're immediately behind them and they know it, but generally it falls on the chaplain to give them a bit of a prompt. And it's a good chaplain, and it does take skill to be a chaplain. You're not just reading. You need to know the brother that's delivering the charge, because when you're delivering a charge, and everyone delivers one differently, right? You're delivering it with meaning. So there's going to be some deliberate pauses because you want the candidate to think. So a good chaplain isn't just going to jump in and say the next word because the brother paused for a second. They'll know, and they'll get to know, and they'll tend to chat with the different lodge officers or whoever's delivering charges, and you'll probably see that, particularly if it's a visitor delivering a charge. He may go up to the chaplain and say, hey, look, I don't really need any prompting. If I do, I'll turn around and give you the nod. And that's, the chaplain knows, okay, there's going to be some pauses in what they say. They're going to really try and, they're going to do a good job of this charge, really. So there's skill involved in being a chaplain, and some lodges, they want you to be the chaplain first because they want you to know the ritual. And if you're reading through the ritual word for word as it's happening in lodge, and you're doing that for an entire year, believe me, you get to know that ritual intimately. So they're the officers in the lodge. Now in the east, there's normally 3 chairs. Some lodges will have, say, 5 chairs. But a lot of the small lodges, you'll see that there's going to be 3 chairs up in the east. So you've got the master of the lodge. To the left of him is going to be the immediate past master. To the right of him and to the right of him, as his first-person view, if you're the master of the lodge, the person sitting to the right of you will normally be a representative of Grand Lodge. So in Queensland at the moment, and I say that because the name has changed, you'll have the Assistant Grand District Director of Development sitting beside you, or AGDD sitting beside you. And that's a representative of the United Grand Lodge of Queensland, or the United Grand Lodge of whatever area you're in, and they'll report back to the Grand Lodge and say, hey, yep, they had a meeting, all was good, they did this. Just keeps Grand Lodge informed of what's happening in the lodge, and they'll relay any messages that Grand Lodge may have to the lodge by having a bit of a chat at the end of the night. So they're the officers of a lodge. Really good to start out as the inner guard. What's even better is if you start out as a steward, and this will vary. If your lodge doesn't have many members, you'll find yourself getting dumped into an office position pretty quickly, if you wish to be an officer of a lodge. So sort of slow down, they're walking their dogs, and don't want to kick up dust on them. But yeah, ideally you start as a steward, and your role is to just chip in and help out, show that you're motivated, you've got good intentions, and you're capable, you're reliable, you rock up all the time, because once you're an officer of the lodge, you should be there at every single meeting. We get it, things happen, and the process or the priority levels are family first, work second, lodge third. So we do expect to see you at lodge every month if you're an officer of the lodge. We do understand if you can't, it happens, but you need to be there a lot, because you're taking on the responsibility of that office and to perform those duties. So if you can't make it to lodge, let the master know well in advance, so someone else can fill in that role for you, and if there's any work to do, revise themselves or refresh themselves on that actual work. And that's it. That's lodge office. Get used to ritual, learn the ritual, study it, understand it before you deliver a charge. You'll enjoy it. Well, some people don't. I do. And yeah, if you want to get to the chair, that's each office position you're going to be in for about a year. So it takes a few years to get to the master's chair. It can be a bit faster. Just depends on who's in what office. I've had it where there's been officers of a lodge that didn't want to go in the chair, so they're like, yeah, give it to someone else. And so the junior warden's taken the office position, the master's position. In Queensland, to be an officer of a lodge, you must have served as a warden for a full term before you can be the master of a lodge. So as long as you've been a warden, you can be a junior warden and then go straight into the master's chair. Nothing's wrong with that. My advice to anyone that does that, learn the senior warden role still anyway after you've had your term in the master's chair, because it's good to know every office, be fluent in it, I should say. Anyway, that's it. That's enough for the video. Probably went for way too long anyway. Hopefully you enjoyed it, got something out of it. Tell me what your lodge does. I'm interested to hear. This is, well, the video is just me yakking on about crap. I am interested in what happens in other lodges around the world. Tell me what happens, what you do. Take care. Hopefully I'll see you on lodge. If not, I'll see you on the next ride. Bye.